The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine N. Aron, Ph.D. Picture this. A young college student named Kristen sits across from a psychologist. She's bright, articulate, but there's a tremor in her voice that won't quite settle. "I'm sorry," she whispers, barely meeting the doctor's eyes. "But I had to talk to someone who could tell me." Her voice cracks, and when she finally looks up, her eyes hold a question that echoes through so many silent moments of so many lives. Am I crazy? Kristen had always felt like she was standing slightly outside the human experience, watching through glass. As a little girl in nursery school, everything seemed too much, too loud, too bright. While other kids gleefully banged on pots and pans during music time, she'd clamp her hands over her ears, tears streaming down her face. Her teachers labeled her spacey, which kicked off a whole medical odyssey. They tested her for intellectual disabilities and discovered she belonged in the gifted program. They checked her hearing, perfectly normal. They even scanned her brain for seizures. Everything came back normal. The final verdict? She had trouble screening out stimuli. But all young Kristen heard was the same relentless message. Something is fundamentally wrong with you. This shadow followed her into adulthood until, overwhelmed by relationships, life changes, and travel, she found herself teetering on the edge of a breakdown, convinced she carried some fatal character flaw. But what if I told you that this feeling, this sense of being perpetually overwhelmed, too emotional, too reactive, isn't a defect at all? What if it's more like being a Stradivarius violin in a world full of acoustic guitars? This is the radical, life-altering premise of Dr. Elaine N. Aron's international phenomenon, the highly sensitive person. For millions of readers, this book has been nothing short of revelatory, finally putting a name to something they'd always felt but never understood. Dr. Aron, a research psychologist and psychotherapist, wasn't just an academic observer. She was exploring her own experience. After an intense reaction to a medical procedure, her therapist casually mentioned, "But of course you were upset. You're a highly sensitive person." That single observation ignited years of research, hundreds of interviews, and clinical work that eventually became this transformative guide. Today, we're diving into the world of the highly sensitive person, or HSP. And I promise you this, by the time we're done, you'll see yourself, or someone you deeply care about, through a completely different lens. You'll understand why some people feel everything more intensely, notice what others walk right past, and desperately need quiet spaces to restore themselves. Most importantly, you'll discover that this trait isn't some weakness to overcome, but a profound strength waiting to be understood, honored, and unleashed. This isn't just about surviving the overwhelm, it's about learning to absolutely thrive. Have you ever been hit with, "You're just too sensitive for your own good"? Maybe you've heard variations like, "Don't be such a crybaby," or "Why do you take everything so personally?" If those phrases land like familiar punches, if they echo somewhere deep in your memory, then you know what it's like to suspect there's something fundamentally different about how you experience the world. Like you're navigating life with one less protective layer than everyone else seems to have. Here's what Dr. Elaine Aron wants you to know. You're not flawed. You're not damaged goods. You're quite possibly a highly sensitive person. And here's the kicker. It's not a disorder. It's a completely normal, neutral, inherited trait. Think of it like having green eyes or being naturally left-handed. It's simply your particular wiring. About 15 to 20% of the population arrives in this world with this trait. That's 1 in every 5 people. And it's not even just a human thing. Scientists have observed it in over 100 different species, from fruit flies and fish all the way up to dogs, cats, and monkeys. In every species, there's always this minority of individuals who are more watchful, more cautious, who process their environment more deeply before taking action. Think about that for a second. Evolution has preserved this trait across countless species and millions of years. It must serve some vital purpose. So what is that purpose? And what does being an HSP actually look like in daily life? The foundation is a nervous system that's calibrated differently. It's not that your senses are superhuman. Your vision and hearing aren't necessarily better than anyone else's. The real difference is in your brain. You process information, all information, more thoroughly. Imagine two computers. One is a standard laptop that handles tasks efficiently and quickly. The other is a supercomputer that analyzes every piece of data from multiple angles, cross-references it with past information, and spots subtle patterns the standard model would completely miss. That supercomputer, that's the HSP brain. This deeper processing creates some predictable patterns, which Dr. Aron brilliantly captures with the acronym DOES. Understanding this is like finding the instruction manual you never knew existed. First up, D is for depth of processing. This is the absolute bedrock of the trait. You think more about, well, everything. When you're making decisions, you're considering every angle, every possible outcome, every ripple effect. This is why you might take longer to decide than others. Not because you're wishy-washy, but because you're thorough. When you're in conversation, you're not just hearing words. You're reading tone, body language, the subtext, what's being carefully avoided. This deep processing fuels your rich inner life. You have vivid, memorable dreams, a powerful imagination, and this constant internal dialogue running in the background. Because you're always connecting dots and comparing information, you often have strong intuition. You just know things without being able to point to exactly why. You see connections others walk right past. The second letter is O, for overstimulation. This is the part of the trait that HSPs, and everyone around them, notice most obviously. If your brain is this supercomputer processing every tiny detail in your environment, it's going to burn through energy faster. It's simple math. Picture yourself in a crowded shopping mall. A non-HSP might register the stores and the crowd. You're registering the harsh fluorescent lighting, the competing conversations, the music bleeding from 3 different stores, the food court smells, the baby crying 2 stores down, and the subtle tension radiating from the couple arguing near the fountain. You're absorbing and processing all of it simultaneously. What's merely busy for others becomes crushing for you. Your nervous system floods. This isn't weakness. It's the logical consequence of your particular wiring. This is why you need to retreat after a stimulating day. You might need a quiet, darkened room, not because you're antisocial, but because your nervous system needs to reboot. You've simply hit your processing capacity sooner than others do. Third, E is for emotional reactivity and empathy. HSPs feel everything on a more intense frequency. The highs soar higher, and the lows sink deeper. And this isn't just about negative emotions. You react more powerfully to a stunning piece of music, a breathtaking sunset, or a small act of kindness. You're deeply, sometimes overwhelming, moved by art and beauty. But yes, you also feel criticism more sharply and carry the world's pain more heavily. This emotional intensity connects directly to empathy. You don't just intellectually understand how someone else feels, you actually feel it with them. When a friend is hurting, you don't just sympathize. Part of you experiences that same hurt in your own body. This happens because of mirror neurons in the brain, which fire both when we do something and when we watch someone else do it. Brain scans show that HSPs have more active mirror neuron systems, especially when viewing photos of people showing emotion. This remarkable capacity for empathy makes you an extraordinarily caring friend, partner, and parent. You're naturally tuned into the emotional frequencies of others, but it also means you have to guard against absorbing too much of other people's distress. Finally, S is for sensing the subtle. This is about your awareness of tiny details that others simply don't register. You're probably the first person to notice the plant in the corner needs water, or that your friend got a haircut, even if it's just a trim. You pick up on micro-expressions and subtle shifts in tone that make you remarkably perceptive in social situations. You can often sense what someone is feeling before they say a word. You might also notice delicate physical sensations others miss. Subtle scents or flavors, slight temperature changes, the scratchiness of certain fabrics. Again, this isn't about having superior senses. It's about your brain paying closer attention to sensory information. So, DOES, depth of processing, overstimulation, emotional reactivity, and sensing the subtle. These 4 elements come as a package. You can't cherry-pick the advantages. The intuition, the empathy, the creativity, the profound appreciation for beauty, without also getting the challenges, primarily that tendency to become overstimulated. Now, you might be thinking, wait, this just sounds like introversion or shyness. That's probably the most common misconception, and it's one of the most critical things Dr. Aron clarifies. Shyness is a learned fear of social judgment. Sensitivity is an inborn biological trait. You arrive with it. While many HSPs develop shyness, because constantly hearing you're too sensitive can definitely make you self-conscious, it's not the same thing. In fact, Dr. Aron's research revealed that about 30% of HSPs are actually extroverts. They genuinely enjoy being around people and get energy from social connection. But even an extroverted HSP will eventually hit overstimulation and need to withdraw and recharge, which can be confusing for them and everyone around them. An extroverted non-HSP, by contrast, actually gets energized by more and more social interaction. The confusion with introversion makes sense too. About 70% of HSPs are introverts. Introverts are people who prefer quieter, less stimulating environments, and a handful of deep relationships over a huge social circle. This naturally meshes well with the HSP trait. But not all introverts are HSPs. Some introverts just prefer their own company without having that hyper-tuned nervous system. And as we just established, not all HSPs are introverts. The core of the trait isn't about being social or not. It's about that depth of processing. The science behind this is genuinely fascinating. Researchers like Jerome Kagan at Harvard studied this trait in infants, calling it high reactivity. They discovered that from birth, about 20% of babies react more intensely to new stimuli, a colorful mobile, an unfamiliar sound. These babies pump their arms and legs, arch their backs, and cry more readily. These same babies are significantly more likely to become cautious, sensitive children. They have higher, more stable heart rates, elevated levels of the stress hormone cortisol, and even greater activity in the right hemisphere of their brain, which governs emotions and holistic thinking. This isn't some psychological quirk. It's baked into your biology. More recent research has even connected the HSP trait to specific genetic variations related to serotonin and dopamine, brain chemicals involved in mood, motivation, and information processing. What's truly remarkable is that these genetic variations aren't linked only to negative outcomes. The same genetic makeup that makes an HSP more vulnerable to depression after a troubled childhood also makes them flourish more than others in a supportive, nurturing environment. They're more affected by their surroundings, for better or worse, like a delicate orchid that will wither in poor soil but produce the most extraordinary flowers in rich, well-tended earth. A dandelion will grow pretty much anywhere, but it will never become an orchid. This brings us to one of the most healing sections of the book, reframing your past. If you're an HSP, your childhood was fundamentally different from a non-HSP's, even if you grew up in the exact same house with non-sensitive siblings. You felt everything more intensely. A harsh word from a parent or teacher cut deeper and lasted longer. A scary movie haunted your dreams for weeks. The chaos of a big family gathering left you completely depleted. And because our culture doesn't always value sensitivity, you probably absorbed messages that something was wrong with you. In North America especially, the cultural ideal leans toward the tough, outgoing, unshakable warrior type. In a revealing study, researchers compared school children in Canada and Shanghai. In Canada, shy and sensitive children ranked among the least popular. In China, where words like shy or quiet can mean thoughtful or well-behaved, these same children were among the most chosen as friends. Your culture literally determines whether your trait is seen as a gift or a liability. Growing up as a sensitive boy is often particularly brutal. Boys face pressure to be tough, bold, emotionally stoic. A sensitive boy who cries easily or prefers reading to rough sports often faces relentless teasing. He learns to hide his true nature, to armor up, which can lead to a lifetime of feeling disconnected from his own emotional life. A sensitive girl might have her sensitivity more accepted, as it aligns with cultural stereotypes of femininity. But she might also be overprotected, taught that the world is too dangerous for her, that she can't handle it alone. This can seriously undermine her independence and confidence. Understanding this allows you to look back on your life with compassion instead of harsh judgment. Those overwhelming moments weren't failures. Those times you felt different weren't proof of defectiveness. It was your trait, misunderstood by you and everyone around you. This reframing isn't about blaming anyone. It's about liberating yourself from decades of unnecessary self-criticism. It's about finally finding your own instruction manual. So how do you actually use this manual to thrive in a world that often feels like it was designed for someone else? Dr. Aron offers wonderfully practical wisdom. It starts with honoring your body and its real needs. Think of your sensitive body as an infant. Infants have very basic, non-negotiable needs: food, rest, and protection from overwhelming stimulation. When those needs are met, the infant is content. When they're not, the infant cries. It sends out a distress signal. Your body does exactly the same thing. That feeling of being frazzled, irritable, or on the verge of tears, that's your body's distress signal. It's telling you it's had too much. The wise caretaker of an infant learns to anticipate needs and respond to early warning signs. You need to become that wise caretaker for yourself. This means, first and foremost, respecting your need for rest. You need more sleep than others. You need more downtime, genuine time alone, with zero demands, to simply process the day. This isn't a luxury or self-indulgence. It's a biological necessity. Pushing yourself to keep up with non-HSPs is a straight path to burnout, anxiety, and physical illness. It also means creating boundaries and actively managing your environment. This might look like declining that loud party when you're already drained. It might mean wearing noise-canceling headphones in an open-plan office. It might mean leaving a shopping trip early without guilt. It's about creating what Dr. Aron calls containers in your life. Safe, quiet spaces where you can retreat and recharge. Your home, your car, a quiet corner in a library, even a deep conversation with a trusted friend can all serve as containers. This need for a different lifestyle inevitably impacts relationships. An HSP in a close relationship with a non-HSP faces a classic challenge: drastically different optimal arousal levels. The non-HSP partner might want to hit a concert after a long work week, feeling energized by the prospect. For the HSP, that might sound like absolute torture. They're craving a quiet evening at home with a book. This isn't about right or wrong, it's a fundamental difference in wiring. The key is clear communication and mutual respect. The HSP needs to explain their trait without making it sound like an excuse or deficiency. The non-HSP needs to understand without taking it personally. It usually requires compromise, the non-HSP going out with friends sometimes, and other times the couple finding activities that are stimulating but not overwhelming for the HSP, like a walk in nature or a quiet museum visit. What about two HSPs in a relationship? It can be a beautiful haven of mutual understanding. They'll likely share similar rhythms and enjoy quiet activities together. The potential pitfall is that they might both become too withdrawn from the world, with no one gently encouraging new experiences. Also, when both partners are overstimulated simultaneously, it can be tough for either to be the calm, grounding presence the other needs. Whether your partner is an HSP or not, the depth of feeling and perception you bring to relationships is a genuine gift. You're intuitive, empathic, and deeply loyal. You're naturally attuned to your partner's needs and create rich, meaningful connections. This brings us to the larger role of HSPs in society, which Dr. Aron illustrates with a beautiful and powerful metaphor: the partnership between the warrior king and the priestly advisor. Throughout history, thriving societies have often featured these two types of leaders. The warrior king is bold, aggressive, outward-focused. The explorers, the builders, the ones who charge into action, the non-HSPs. But a warrior king alone can be impulsive, reckless, short-sighted. They need the counsel of the priestly advisor, the thoughtful, cautious, inward-focused one. The historians, judges, philosophers, artists, spiritual guides, the ones who say, "Hold on, let's think about the consequences. Let's consider the subtle details. Let's look at the bigger picture," the HSPs. The warrior king might hold the power, but the priestly advisor holds the wisdom. Society desperately needs both. The warriors push civilization forward, but the advisors keep it from running off a cliff. Your vocation as an HSP is to embrace your role as an advisor. Whatever your profession, teacher, accountant, scientist, artist, parent, you bring a depth of thought, conscientiousness, and awareness of subtleties that's desperately needed. You're the one who spots errors before they become disasters. You're the one considering ethical implications. You're the one with vision for a better future. In a business culture that often glorifies the aggressive warrior style, it can be hard to value your quieter, more reflective contribution. But organizations that overlook their HSPs do so at their own peril. They lose their visionaries, their quality controllers, their moral compass. Finding the right work is absolutely crucial for an HSP's well-being. Many HSPs thrive in careers allowing for deep concentration and creativity. Writing, research, therapy, the arts. Many are drawn to helping professions because of their natural empathy. Some discover that self-employment is ideal, allowing them to control their hours and environment. The key is finding work that's meaningful to you and doesn't leave you constantly overstimulated and drained. It's about following what mythologist Joseph Campbell called your bliss, not in the sense of easy, but work that feels deeply right, that calls to something essential in you. This leads us to the final and perhaps most profound aspect of the highly sensitive life: the realm of soul and spirit. HSPs are natural contemplatives. Our tendency toward deep processing and rich inner lives inevitably leads us to the big questions. What's the meaning of life? What's my purpose? What lies beyond the material world? Dr. Aron's interviews and research consistently show that HSPs have richer, more active spiritual lives than others, whether through organized religion, personal spiritual practices like meditation, or deep connection to nature and art. Your sensitivity is a doorway to the transcendent. You're more receptive to moments of awe, wonder, and mystery. You're more likely to have profound spiritual experiences, vivid, meaningful dreams, and a sense of connection to something larger than yourself. In a world that's often loud, cynical, and superficial, your ability to create and hold space for the sacred is invaluable. You're the keeper of the inner life, the one who reminds society that reality extends beyond what can be seen and measured. This is the ultimate expression of the priestly advisor role. It's not about weakness or fragility. It's about possessing a different kind of strength, the strength to see deeply, feel profoundly, and connect with the very soul of the world. To be a highly sensitive person is to be given a special, though sometimes challenging, instrument. Your task isn't to wish for a different one, but to learn to play yours beautifully. It means accepting that you'll feel the world's sorrows more keenly, but also experience its joys more intensely. It means honoring your need for quiet and solitude, not as retreating from life, but as the necessary condition for hearing the subtle music of your own soul. And it means having the courage to share the wisdom, creativity, and compassion that are your birthright. Your trait isn't a burden, it's your calling. As we step back from the highly sensitive person, what strikes me most is how this book functions as a mirror. For so many readers, it's the first time they've seen their true reflection, not the distorted image painted by a misunderstanding world. Dr. Aron's work transcends psychological theory. It's an act of profound validation. It takes what's been labeled a flaw and reframes it as fundamental, valuable human diversity. The most powerful shift for me is moving from seeing sensitivity as fragility to understanding it as acuity. It's not about having thinner skin, it's about having a more powerful antenna. This simple perspective change is revolutionary. It frees you from the exhausting, impossible task of trying to toughen up, and instead invites you into more authentic work, learning to manage your finely tuned system. The warrior king and priestly advisor metaphor is brilliant because it gives this trait a noble, essential place in humanity's story. It says, your way of being isn't just okay, it's necessary. In today's world, which seems to grow louder, faster, and more overstimulating daily, this message feels more urgent than ever. We're drowning in information while starving for wisdom. We're more technologically connected but often feel more emotionally disconnected. The HSP, with their preference for depth over speed, meaning over noise, and authentic connection over superficial networking, offers a vital counterbalance. They're the ones who naturally pause, reflect, and ask the deeper questions our hurried world forgets to consider. So how can you start integrating this understanding into your life, starting today? Here are a few practical steps. First, get curious. If this description resonates, take the self-test in the book, or find it online. Don't treat it as a definitive diagnosis, but as a tool for self-reflection. Just seeing the questions can be illuminating. Ask yourself, do other people's moods affect me? Do I have a rich, complex inner life? Do I get rattled when I have a lot to do quickly? Answering honestly is the first step toward genuine self-knowledge. Second, Identify one primary source of overstimulation in your daily life and create a small, loving boundary around it. Is it your noisy commute? Maybe it's time for noise-canceling headphones. The constant stream of phone notifications? Try scheduling 1 hour of Do Not Disturb time daily. Feeling drained after social events? Give yourself permission to leave early, guilt-free. This isn't avoidance. It's strategic energy management. It's honoring your body's real needs. Third, practice reframing. Think back to one specific memory where you felt ashamed for being too sensitive. Maybe crying at school, or feeling overwhelmed at a childhood party. Now look at that memory through your new understanding. See that child not as flawed, but as a highly sensitive individual whose nervous system was simply overwhelmed. Offer your younger self the compassion and understanding they didn't receive then. This simple act can begin healing old wounds and building a foundation of deep, unshakable self-acceptance. That was a summary of The Highly Sensitive Person by Elaine N. Aron. We've explored the main ideas today, but here's the truth. A summary is like looking at a travel brochure. The real adventure happens when you take the trip yourself. The true magic of this book lives in those quiet reading moments, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with something deep in your own experience. This summary is a map designed to help you see if this is a journey you want to take. If anything we've discussed today has resonated with you, I genuinely encourage you to get a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely transform how you see yourself and your place in the world. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this summary valuable and want to keep exploring the world's most impactful books, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It lets us know we're on the right track and ensures you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep growing together.